Do you have a couple stories of times where you were with the people that you were leading that was the most impactful for you in terms of not necessarily a moment where you were impacted by one of the actions that you made, but you being able to receive from the people that you're leading? Because like one of the things that hit me, I can't remember where I read it or I can't remember where I read it in the Bible. I think it was along a date with David, but something that came to mind was the best leaders are the ones who can receive the best from the people they're leading and not just think that they're the only ones that have ideas that are valuable or vision or guidance or anything like that. But is there any stories that come to mind that are alongside that of you being able to receive from the people that you led?
Yeah, I think probably the best example for me is like when I've failed the most, to have dudes that like I've helped I've helped develop tell me about myself.
Wow.
Like, because it's just incredibly painful and challenging and hard and probably the most beneficial though. Like to fail and have dudes be like, yo, you failed, bro. And have to deal with that. That's been the most impactful stuff that I've ever had to deal with in ministry and in leadership. And most of us will, run from it. And I've had those seasons, and I've just tried not to run from it. Try to just face on, and be like, "Yep, this is my moment. I deserve this." And because as a leader and as a friend and everything, like you always remember. I can't really sum up all the great ones, the great moments, but I can remember every time I messed up. I remember every kid that I feel like I failed. I remember every kid who's died in ministry while I've been around. I don't know if you say under me, but while I've been around, I know every kid that's gone to jail while I've been a leader that I've had a chance to interact with. I know the kids who are in jail right now that I've had influence. I've had a whole family. This is one family. I've interacted and mentored every single one of them through all these generations, 4 generations, I think. Every single one of them, none of them in church. And they all went to jail. And it's like, bro, I got this gift. Like, what is the point of this? I've done nothing with it. Like, that's what it feels like. Like, I've had, I think, 6 kids go to jail while I've been a leader. And a few die. Mostly peers that died. And then a bunch of kids who like not go to church no more or kind of give up on the religion. Mm-hmm. And I remember all of those. I can't remember all the great stories. I don't remember everybody who went on to do whatever. I don't know. But I remember every time I felt like I really messed up. And I remember the times where I know for a fact that like, yeah, I blew that. Mm-hmm. I put a lot of ego in that. That was a lot of me in that. There was not a lot of Jesus in that moment. There was a whole lot of Mack in that moment. I remember all of those. Mm.
So how do you, because obviously, you're discussing the weight that comes with influence and just the position that you're in and all that God has given you, essentially, even from a young age, and some of the stories you just shared. So how do you deal with that, with those, man, I blew it with this one, I failed with this one went to jail when I was around. Like, how do you deal and process all of those?
Yeah. I don't know if I deal with them great. I do mourn them. At the end of the day, I just mourn them. I lament them. I give them seasons of mourning. Some of my great failures, I've made sure that I've given them a season of mourning, and what I feel like is adequate time to mourn. And then the beauty is, if you read the Bible, you realize, oh, this is everybody's story. So we get caught up in this idea from when we're Christians that we're not gonna royally mess up anymore. And we're taught to like, all right, you're saved now, you're different now. Like, you're not gonna do this stuff. Like, no, you're probably still gonna fail. Like, you look at David had accomplished everything and then decided to fail. Like, that's so hard sometimes. Like, I felt the same. Like, I felt like I went to college and just didn't wild out. Just wasn't smashing girls, wasn't doing drugs. Like, I was drinking, like, in front of all my roommates. I would tell them, I would fight them to the death. Like, no, I'm not smoking. No, I'm not drinking. No, I'm not doing none of that. Girls would try to stay, like, nah, I'm not doing it. And then I felt like when I got out of college, after I had conquered the mountaintop, I felt like Got to real life, and I felt like I started fumbling the bag like crazy. It's like, yo, are you serious? Like, we went through the hard part. I went to college in Miami. I lived with 5 girls. Like, they was at clubs every night. People working at crazy. They'd invite me to strip clubs and doing drugs. Like, it was all at my fingertips, and I passed it all up. And then I get to like real life, and I'm like, I start fumbling now. Like, it's so backwards. But then you look at David, like I said, who nailed everything. It sounded like he was God's homie. Like he killed it, and he failed at the end of his ministry, and lamented, for that 9 months. He wept and fasted, and everybody thought he was going to kill himself because he was so down. But as soon as the baby died, he said he got up, took a shower, and started eating. And everybody was just even more confused. They're like, wait, the same dude we thought when the baby died, he was probably going to hang himself. But no, his time of lament, he felt like it was over. And so I look at all these examples. You look at Paul, Paul's wrecked. You look at Peter, like how are Peter and Paul? This is one of my favorite things. How are Peter and Paul established in ministry where they're at, the most, leaders of the church, and they violently disagreeing on issues. And Paul's running up to Peter like, yo, you're fake. In the middle of church service, like running up inside the service, running up to your pastor like, yo, you're fake. You don't eat that. You don't eat swine, huh? You was with them boys eating swine last week, though. Can you imagine that? And so, yeah, we gonna fail. It's part of it. It's part of the process. What we don't do as Christians, we don't have anybody prepared. That's why these young pastors commit suicide, in my opinion, because they have these failure moments and they're like, I can't face this, so I'd rather commit suicide. So that's what happens a lot of times, I believe, because there's no room for pastors to really fail and get really built up. Sometimes you see it and it's weird, and the next day they're right back where they was. But sometimes you see them and they're gone forever. Or they, like you said, they commit suicide, or they can't reface their families because they cheated on their wife and they can't go back to it. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we got to give Christians the ability to fail and be built back up and come back, because this is a whole life and process of failures and comebacks.